All right, welcome everybody to our breakfast. We're glad you're here today. Hopefully we have a good topic that is interesting and helpful to you. I'm an accounting professor, so this one's near and dear to me. I get lots of questions from small business people, and I always say accounting is not rocket science, and it is learnable. And today we have a very excellent guest to help us walk through it. So I'm going to interact with him a little bit. We tried to think through some questions maybe, but if you have others, you can pipe in and ask those questions. And then Aaron is going to stay afterwards to help anybody with any specific, if you have a specific QuickBooks issue or whatever. He's also a QuickBooks advisor. So this is Aaron Coates. He has a business in Mansfield. That really is his website. So
yes,
he's legitimate. So we're going to, he has been an accountant for over a decade probably now, and he works with very small businesses just starting out. I think I want to start a business, and that level to multi-million-dollar large businesses that have complicated systems and a higher level software than QuickBooks, and also complicated inventory is probably one of your specialties in sales tax, I think. So I think hopefully you'll gain some insight into the questions, and again, pipe in if you have other ones. So let's get started, Aaron.
All right. So of course, my name is Aaron, as she said, and what she didn't say is that she was my professor. So Sharon was my professor, and so, that kind of, for me, I always appreciate when somebody like her is like, oh, hey, he's done really well. I'm like, oh, thanks. I guess I did. For some reason, somehow I learned it.
I like that.
All right. So just a couple things. So before we begin, of course, small businesses, as you said, all sizes, startups, all the way to multi-million dollars. Literally, that's small businesses. In the eyes of IRS, everybody, small businesses is that.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because you can't sit there and just say, oh yeah, this is small business under $500,000. Nope. It's all the way up to $5 million is what the IRS states as being a small business. And that's the crazy part. Also, don't forget to ask questions, or if you guys have other insights as well, please let me know, because I like to constantly learn as well. So if somebody does have something that they have learned before, shout out. I'm okay with that. Interrupt me. I like interaction. I don't like just speaking, because if I speak and only speak, it feels weird, because I don't do well with just speaking. All right.
All right, here is a question that we get. This is often a question from our smaller businesses, and they ask, do I need a separate cash account for my business? We get this in our small ones. So, Aaron, what do you think?
The answer is yes, and here's the reasons why. One is for tracking for your own peace of mind. You want to know what's coming in, what's going out, and what you're spending. Because if you don't know what you're doing, and you don't think, oh yeah, it's just all going to my personal, am I using it for, like, what is it all going to? That's hard. Because people's minds are normally like this. They're not very systematic all the time. Some people are very systematic, but most people are not. And so that's why you want to be able to separate it out, because systematic would be more of like that. Not always the case. And also because you want to track it for taxes. Taxes, you have to sit there and separate out what is your personal, what is your business, and you can only report what is business expenses. Also, you want to do the same with your credit cards. If you can, make sure that you have a separate credit card that you fully use for your business and not try to intermingle personal business expenses. Because again, come time for taxes, you're gonna have a headache, and it's not fun. I've had to be the one to actually sit there and separate those out for people. It's not fun. It takes time. We know. We truly do.
All right, so here's another big question that we've gotten previously. How do I pay myself? You have your business account, you're making money, you're putting money in. I truly get asked this probably about once a month. How do I pay myself? How do I know what to pay myself? My money's in there, but it's business money, and What do you do?
So when a lot of people sit there and ask that question, it's like paying yourself can be simple. It really can, because paying yourself can be as simple as writing yourself a check. It can also just be you're making a bank transfer to yourself if you're able to do that. Now, the question of how much do I pay myself? That's always a great answer, or a great question, because it all depends on what is going on. It's pretty much, what do you need to cover? Do you need to cover your bills? Do you need to cover your living expenses? Or do you need to cover the amount that you owe for taxes on the money you made? All of these things you can do. It doesn't matter, as long as you don't want to take away from the money that you need to grow your business. If you can take that money out and still grow your business, awesome. If you need this to truly be just to cover your own expenses, awesome. Ultimately, as a business owner, it's up to you. There's always guidance that can help, but you need to be able to make that decision on your own as well.
And I think one of the things that people need to do to answer that question, how much do I pay myself? They really need to have some type of mechanism for budgeting cash in their business, some mechanism either through their software, through Excel, because they won't know how much they can pay themselves if they're just living day by day. So Absolutely. It really is a forward-looking decision. How much do I pay myself? Well, how much do I have, and how much am I going to need projection-wise?
Yes, absolutely.
What is the difference between cash and accrual accounting? Anybody who's filled out a business tax return knows that you will get this question, and that's a stumper for a lot of people. And there's some good answers. Right?
Yeah. So cash accounting, of course, is just, you have your cash coming in, you have your cash going out. That is literally cash accounting. You just sit there and say, all the money that's coming in, like let's just say you're a retail, so you're usually just going to be cash accounting under retail. And the reason why is because they have to pay you for the product before you get to give them the product. So there has to be that exchange between there. Now, other people who might have things where it's more accrual based, like, oh, hey, I'm going to let you pay me 14 days from now. Some construction companies will do that. Some may say you got to do it up front. There's others like services. You might have to be like, hey, I'm going to do all this work, and then I'm going to send you a bill. You have 7 days to pay it or whatever. That would be accrual accounting. Anything that's not like you're going to receive the money right away is called accrual accounting. Or pay the money out. Also your bills. Usually your bills you're going to have, 20, 30, maybe even only 15 days. Who knows? Again, it's all about when the money comes in, when the money goes out, and how that interacts. Now, one of the other things, which I do not have on there, is that if you are a business that should be doing accrual accounting is great for banks. Hamilton. Banks love accrual accounting. The reason why they like accrual accounting is because you show income, revenue, your revenue numbers are higher, even though you don't receive that money right away. They like to see that because they know, hey, more money's coming in. And that way, for any type of loans or anything else that happens, they love that part because that helps them.
Tax planning is very good, but it can also be a negative whenever you're showing zero in net income. That's what you're getting taxed on. So just be mindful of that as well from a bank's perspective.
That's a good point. Accrual accounting is very helpful for that.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. We'll try to get into some higher level accounting questions now. This one is a good one. How do I handle sales tax?
Sales tax, you handle it with care, with lots of care, because the comptroller despises you not doing it right. And audits are not fun because that takes a lot of time and you have to show lots of receipts. That is not what you want to do. So that's why you want to make sure that you're doing it with lots and lots of care and with the proper tracking, which ultimately comes down to how much you care about your sales tax to be able to pay it. And not just with care or with proper tracking, you also have to know exactly what it is that you're selling, because there are some things that are taxable and some things that are not. In Texas, we have one of the worst sales tax laws as far as what is tax and what is not tax.
So how do you find that out?
You find that out, unfortunately, by having to go to the codes. But here's the worst part about that is that the tax code for sales tax, you can find 3 different answers in 3 different sections of it, which makes it that much worse.
I think one thing people are really shocked to find out is that services are taxable.
Yes, there are.
Many services are taxable.
Yep, many services are taxable. Like if I sit there and I process payroll, I have to charge sales tax on it. It's really weird. Why payroll? I don't understand.
Charge sales tax on the gross payroll?
Mm.
On your time, right? As a CPA firm, as an accounting firm.
Yep.
That's a taxable service
Yep.
under the sales tax law. Yeah.
Yes.
Like my husband does video production. Unless it's a certain type of video production, he has to collect tax on that.
Yeah. Which is why for me, I sit there and I actually try to, because if I have it all inclusive of things, then it's not taxable. So that's where that law becomes, it's different if I include it into everything that I do for somebody.
And that's really just understanding. Now they'll give you guidance if you call,
Yeah.
right? And they'll give you those kind of helpful
Mm-hmm.
suggestions if you call and get the right person.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I would recommend that. If you don't know if your stuff is taxable, you might want to figure that out. Because what they'll do is they'll do an audit of someone else, and they will see invoices maybe that your business has provided to someone else, and they'll notice that there's no sales tax on it. And if they believe as a sales tax auditor that it's something that should be taxable, well, then they've just got their next audit lined up. So you're going to want to make sure, if you don't know, if your stuff is taxable.
So you say they'll answer your questions if you call them. Who is they?
The sales tax comptroller office,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, the Texas comptrollers, which I believe.
Yeah, if you want to be on hold for 30 minutes.
Or longer.
Yes, unfortunately, yes. But do you want to be on hold for 30 minutes or longer, or do you want to be audited by an auditor?
Neither is good.
Neither is fun, but one is a lot more beneficial because you have a lot less work you have to do.
You're also supposed to report sales tax according to the jurisdiction where the service is performed. So if you're a service company and you have servicemen all over the Metroplex,
Yep.
you're supposed to report it.
And
Done
that,
in Fort Worth or Argyle or wherever.
yep, that county, that city, that also be separated out. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's not easy to handle.
Nope.
It's a deterrent to business, really, when you think about it, all the levels. Yeah. All right. What else you got there? All right. Automation. We live in the world of robots. And, what can we do? Are there robots that can help us with our accounting? That would be nice.
Oh yeah, there are. There's lots of robots, especially, here's a great one. It's called our phones. Our phones are huge robots, and we have them with us everywhere, right? Pretty much nobody goes anywhere without it. Like it's always in our pockets, it's always in our purse. It's always somewhere. We always have it with us. Unfortunately, unless you might be in surgery, and I'm pretty sure you can't have that with you. Just saying. So one of the parts is mileage apps. A lot of people hate tracking mileage. I hate it.
But it's a huge tax deduction.
It's a huge tax deduction, but yes, I hate it. I hate tracking my own mileage. But there are some things that can do it. QuickBooks Online, actually, if you have QuickBooks Online, they do have a feature of it where, hey, you have it show up or be readily available, and it can track your mileage for you. Makes it easy, especially if that's where your accounting software is. Also, there's other apps, one of them being Stride. Stride actually interfaces with QuickBooks Online as well, so if you wanted to, that's always an option. Anything that interfaces with your accounting software, perfect. As long as it has good reviews, people don't sit there and say, oh, this thing crashes on me constantly. Perfect. You want those because it makes life easier. Automation as much as possible. Bill pay. A lot of people hate it. Bill.com. Bill.com is actually very integrated within QuickBooks Online. Like if I go to QuickBooks Online right now, I can sit there and say pay bills online. Automatically takes me straight to Bill.com because they integrate, and it is free between if you have a QuickBooks Online subscription. And with that, you can then pay people by check, so they send out the check, or you can set up bank transfers and they can pay them via ACH.
Do you think that reduces fraud? I'm asking the leading question, but Hamilton, we got you from the banking industry back there. I've seen all kinds of things about check fraud. What do you think about something like that?
There are systems in place. With our bill pay system, you have to go in and manually put in what bills you're expecting, checks expected to be cut. If it doesn't match up, then it won't kick out, but it will prompt you to go in and review that bill to make sure that it was intended for its purpose. And if it was not, it's been caught, the fraudulent check has been caught at that point. But yes, fraud of all sizes of every way is rampant right now.
Yeah.
We're constantly having to fight it. That's not something we get paid for.
Yeah.
Which is the unfortunate part. Another way that you can do bill pay is through Zelle, which most larger bankings have. Not sure.
We have consumer, but we do not have commercial.
Got it. Another thing is payroll services. If you can automate your payroll and not have to do it manually, please do it because it's so much easier. It takes so much less time. So automate means having somebody do your 941s, all the calculation, like as much as automation as you can, do it, but you might still have to put in your hours or different things like that. So you don't have to pay your EFTPS payments anymore. You don't have to file the 941s, the 940s, TWC reports. If you don't have to do that, do it.
Like a leasing company.
Pretty much.
A lot of times the penalties for missing just one or two of those deadlines will pay for the payroll service because they're very stiff deadlines if you miss a payment accidentally.
If you miss it by one day,
Yeah.
you get lots of penalties.
We use a payroll service, and it actually has a mileage tracker within the system. So it combines a couple of those.
Car mileage?
What's the name of it?
Paycom.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
There's also Paycor that does the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah, and most payroll services are doing a lot more to integrate a lot of things, having, different time clocks and integrations and things like the mileage apps, HR benefits, all of that. A lot of those things are already happening. And so it just kind of depends on, hey, who do you want? I just know, like one of those is Paragon. Paragon does a lot of stuff. I've worked with them. And so that is one of the reasons why I have them up there.
If this takes you a direction you don't want to go, you can disregard the question, but would you compare Zelle, I didn't pronounce it right, Venmo and PayPal, are those in the same category?
For the most part, the thing about Zelle is part of banking. Venmo and PayPal, they all have their own third-party softwares. And so Zelle is usually bank to bank. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Hamilton. Another option is also QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Online has subscriptions for payroll services, and they also have some time clock stuff that you can utilize to integrate as well. So this is part 2. Contracts, proposals. I hate having to sit there and not automate my contracts because those are not fun. Oh yeah, I have to print it off, I have to sign it, I have to send it back. It's too much. There's too much going on to have to sit there and do that all the time. One of the options, Proposify. Proposify does have an integration with QuickBooks Online. So if you sit there and you do a proposal with your contract, because I have seen that multiple times, I have multiple clients who do that, you can actually then, as soon as they sign it, take it from Proposify and send it to QuickBooks Online. So QuickBooks Online does say, oh, hey, here's an invoice. Let's send it out. Then all you have to do is say, send.
So it automates the proposal to the sales order.
Yep,
That's really good. That's a good automation.
absolutely.
That's good.
There is other method, like Method CRM. This is another one that integrates directly with QuickBooks Online. You can do proposals, estimates, all of that from there. They can sign it. They can say yes, and you can continue moving forward with a lot of automation.
So is this just like a DocuSign?
Pretty much.
Okay.
But it integrates with QuickBooks Online.
So explain that. How would that work in retail? What would that be?
So for retail, you're not going to have a lot of proposals.
Okay.
So retail is mostly going to be, hey, I want to come buy this from you.
Okay.
And so they have what would be considered like a purchase order. So they're going to like say, or a sales order on the business side of it.
Okay, so what would this workflow, like AC repairman?
Yes.
Okay, what would that look like?
So let's say an AC repairman, they sit there and they're like, okay, I'm going to come check it out. I'm going to look at it. Hey, we have to replace this whole system. And so this is how much it's going to be. This is, all like the dates and everything that we're going to do it, whatnot. Okay, yes, the consumer says I want to do it. And they sign it. And it goes directly to QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Online will then come and send them an invoice to where they there's also integrations on payments in QuickBooks Online and that as well, to where they get the invoice, they then have the invoice and can sign it, send it. You no longer have to worry about any other paperwork that gets sent out because it's all done digitally. Inventory tracking. Retail. That is huge. There are, of course, multiple apps. SOS Inventory is one of them. It does a lot of integrations with the softwares. Another one is Locate Inventory. They both have great reviews. I've used SOS Inventory before, and I have nothing to sit there and say anything bad about that. Ultimately, what you want as a retailer, track your inventory. Or a manufacturer, you need to track your inventory. Because if you don't track it, how do you know what you have to be able to make what you have to make? You just don't. Unless you have an Excel spreadsheet, and that takes you forever. Done that too.
Okay, here let's move to a different level. I mean, all those apps and stuff, there's many more, but you get the picture. You can automate stuff, and it takes a little bit of time up front, but it makes your life easier going forward, and your system gets updated, and that's all good. Now, as far as my system goes, let's just, in general, whether you use QuickBooks or another software, what should I be tracking on my chart of accounts?
So the things that you should be tracking, specific things that are for your tax return, okay? Ultimately, what you want on your chart of accounts is A, for yourself to know exactly what you're spending, but B, you also want it for your tax return, because if you don't have it tracked for your tax return, guess what? People who have to do the taxes you have to pay them a whole lot more because you don't have it in the right place. They don't like it.
You might miss a deduction.
True, and you might miss a deduction. One of those things is meals. And one of the reasons why I say meals is because meals, let's just say that you go out to dinner with your spouse, and when you go out to dinner with your spouse, you guys talk about your business. You talk about whatever is going on. By talking about your business, it now becomes a deduction on your business, for your business, because you guys talked. It's pretty much like having a board meeting between you and your spouse. Hey. It might only be 50%, but that 50% adds up if you guys do that once a month. Makes it a lot.
And how do you prove that? Do you keep minutes, or
if you take your receipt, you write on, this is who you were with. You just say, talk about whatever it is about the business. You take a copy of that receipt, like you scan it or whatnot, whatever you have, and that will give you the proof to the IRS saying, hey, this is what we did.
Can you do that too much? And then think, wait a minute, this isn't right.
I would say yes.
Yes. If you do it way too often and there's a huge meals in comparison from a previous year, IRS will probably audit you because they don't like people overdoing that part of it. So.
Is this why it's important to have separate credit cards for your business?
Yes, absolutely. This is one of the reasons why, yes. Unfortunately, entertainment. You got to separate out entertainment because it's no longer deductible as of like 4 years ago. Boo, IRS. So let's just say you go to the DBU Baylor baseball game. Going there is considered entertainment. But the food you had, if you guys talked about business, is deductible. But the actual event is not. So let's say you go to a play or anything else that's kind of like those types of things, that's considered entertainment in the eyes of the IRS. Your computer equipment, because most people have computers, most people have phones, tablets, whatever it is. Of course, you want to track that because this is 100% deductible when you purchase it. You purchase a computer in 2021. You get to deduct that whole entire thing off of your taxable income. Inventory. Says for itself, inventory. You need to track it because if you don't track it, it makes your life a whole lot easier. Or a whole lot harder, sorry. Not easier, harder if you don't track it. So some of the things like when to use classes. And for the chart of accounts, there's a lot more that should be tracked. You have advertising, you have all the other different things. Because if you sit there and, again, the IRS likes to compare if there's a huge separate, like if there's a huge difference from 1 year to the next. Like what I mean by huge, like if you're taking $200,000, $300,000 advertising from 1 year to the next, IRS hates that. And they're going to sit there and audit you and ask you, are you sure that this is all advertising?
And they track that by business. If you go to workforce development or the small business, Navarro runs a small business office. We'll have them in to do a breakfast. We had them in last year. We'll bring them back. But they have a software. They can run your business and tell you what normal expenses are based on industry across your zip code, area, state, nationally. And it's free there. It was free last year. So if you have questions like, are my numbers right? If you're tracking and you want to know what do I look like against the industry, then it's free to make an appointment with them. Make an appointment and have them run some of those reports for you.
Yeah, because if the IRS sees that, hey, you're spending a lot more, you're probably going to get audited, and then you have to sit there and deal with an audit. Not fun. Even if you have all your receipts, it's still not fun, because then they're going to do a deep dive into every other aspect of your business.
What about a home office? How does that fit into tracking within these systems that you?
So home office is usually you're going to do that at year end, and that's a completely separate aspect of that because you're going to take your whole expenses for the whole entire year, and then of course do the calculation of like what's the size of your office compared to your home, everything like that. That's usually just going to be a once a year thing, unless you're going to sit there and use what's called the Augusta Rule, which is a separate thing. I don't have this up there. So the Augusta Rule, you guys can actually rent your home for free for up to 15 days throughout the whole entire year. You can rent your home to be able to have meetings, board meetings. Only thing you have to do is that you do have to track minutes, and you have to sit there and say who was there, sign it, all that stuff. You can have a board meeting with you, yourself, and I. You still have that whole day as a rent-free or as an income-free rent expense on your business.
Kind of a side question is, and I don't mean to distract you from this, but
you're good.
Has there been some changes with a lot of people working from home through the pandemic and all that kind of stuff? And I know the IRS allows deductions for home offices for your business, but as a wage earner and I'm working from home, are there any deductions that are available?
Unfortunately, no, because they got away with that about 4 years ago with one of the laws that Trump enacted. Like they completely took away that expense.
And it's even causing more problems because people are moving to different state tax jurisdictions. And so they could end up owing taxes in a state because they spent so much time in that state. If they decided, I'm going to go to Colorado and work from home rather than stay in Texas, they might end up with a tax bill from Colorado.
Yep.
That they weren't anticipating.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So just kind of keep going. So when do you use classes in any of your softwares? So classes could be either you're looking at different revenue streams. So it could be if you have properties, you have about 5 or 6 properties, you don't want 5 or 6 QuickBooks files or whatever software, you put them into classes and you can track all the revenue expenses directly for that property. Another way is like, let's just say people have different revenue streams as far as any other types of service. Like they want to do marketing, but they also want to provide consulting services. They want to know what's the difference between those 2 revenue streams. That's another way of using classes for that. Couple things. When to use tags. If you need to remember to ask a question, use a tag because you can search for those tags. Also, when you need to classify transactions for a very specific credit. This is lots of things that go on with that. Research and development is one of them because you need to track exactly what it is that you were doing, especially people who are in life sciences. You guys have a ability to take the research and development credit, but you have to be very specific in what it is that you are categorizing as that. So that's a conversation for other days, but those are some of the reasons why you want to use tags for that purpose.
All right. What are some things I can do to prepare for taxes? Maybe throughout the year rather than
Yes.
We have 7 days left.
Yes.
Hey, I had someone come in that brought shoe boxes of receipts and Walmart bags of tickets from the dog races or something. I don't know. It was nuts. We have seen some stuff.
Yeah, I had one person who they hadn't filed for like 5 years, but they had all the receipts. So they just brought in like, here's 1 year, here's another year, or here's a wagon of 1 whole year of stuff. We're like,
truly a wagon.
Yeah. That's a lot.
That's a lot. So help us with that.
So some of the things, 2021 moving forward of what you can do. In 2021, at least for the tax, for this year, or for the tax return that's getting filed, you can pay into a traditional IRA. Of course, that's something that's as a deduction for any individual. Any individual can pay into a traditional IRA. As a business owner, I said this earlier, the Augusta Rule, and this was from Augusta, so that, all the golf tournament, they sat there and said, oh, hey, you guys can all rent your homes, because people are like, I'm heading out of town because I don't want to deal with the craziness, so I'm going to go out of town, but I'm going to rent my home. IRS sat there and said, you guys can rent your home for free, which then turned into businesses. You guys can rent your home for free by using this deduction. Also, and I don't have this up there, all the things that we've talked about already, your QuickBooks Online, everything else, all those things help as a business owner to have a software to be able to track all of this, everything that we have talked about so far. Some things in 2022, what can you prepare to do? Hire your kids. As somebody who has young kids, unfortunately, I cannot have them help me yet. You hire your kids and not have to pay as a single member LLC, you don't have to pay the employer taxes on them, or as a partnership. As an S corporation, that is something where you would have to pay that, but you can still pay them up to $12,500 and not have to record a tax return for them, so it's tax-free income and an expense for the business.
How does that, what about child labor laws?
As long as you're Like, if they're your child and you're having them like, hey, I'm going to go file papers away, or hey, I'm going to go have them just scan documents. Like, if it's doing that and that's all you're having them pretty much do, or like I know some realtors who will have their kids come out with them to go put out signs, all of those things are reasonable for them to do. Because usually they want to do it anyways. What was that?
Is there an age limit on that?
18. They have to be up to 18. As soon as they're 18, that is no longer. But they can also they can't be younger than 7. If they're younger than 7, you can't pay them to work. I know, I got 6. Trust me, yes, I have 6 kids. Another thing, of course, for 2022, start tracking your miles. You track your miles, and ultimately, that's a huge deduction for you for 2022 when it's come times for tax returns.
All right. There was a lot of money flying the last 2 years. Has that ended? Is there anything else available to businesses through the COVID programs that were established?
So one of the things is the EIDL loan's still available for those who have already applied for it. If you have not applied, I'm sorry, you can't do anything about that. The EIDL loans, you have your loan increases, which I think is now up to $2 million. They have their whole calculation. Most small businesses are not going to get $2 million, but you can probably get up to potentially $500,000 if you have a big enough business. Reconsiderations, of course, if you got denied before, you can submit a reconsideration for that EIDL loan. Anybody who does not know EIDL loans, you get 30 years of like 3.25% interest rate on the loan, and you don't have to pay it back for 30 months. They just changed it. Sorry. You don't have to pay any payments to it for 30 months. Also appeals. Again, it's kind of similar to your reconsideration. You got denied, you sit there, you appeal it. All that great stuff. Another one, employee retention credit. If you were in business in 2019, but then COVID hit and your business income went down by 50% in that quarter, is when you can start taking the employee retention credit in comparison to 2019. And then you can sit there and take that until you hit 90% or third quarter of 2021, if whichever one's sooner.
So can you go back and refile for
Yep.
that? So
Actually just refiled for somebody and getting them $160,000.
So if you think that I've heard this from many people. If you think that you may have qualified, because they rewrote those rules a couple times. Like initially, maybe you didn't qualify. That's when you checked it out. You need to go back and see how the rules were rewritten, because they were rewritten a couple times.
Yep.
And see if you go back in time now. And even if you took the PPP loan,
you can still do it. You just have to take what you use as your wow, I am blanking on this. I'm sorry. Forgiveness. Sorry, my bad. Whatever is a forgiveness, you can't utilize that in the calculation. But most people, you're probably in 2020, if that was when it all happened, you probably have somebody that got paid. That's not part of your family. Unfortunately, if they're part of your family, you can't take them or you can't use this for them. But you probably have somebody that was in one of those first, second, third, or fourth quarter to be able to use that $5,000 per employee. Now in 2021, it changed to $7,000 per employee for every single quarter rather than $5,000 for the whole entire year.
so it would be worth someone's time if they qualify for the PPP, then they probably might have a shot at this to
Absolutely.
have someone look at that over and confirm.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you do have lots of employees. If you have lots of employees and you pay them over $10,000 every single quarter, especially in 2021, if you're able to do that, that's a lot of money. That's $21,000 just on that alone in 2021.
Okay. All
So-
right. This is good.
Yeah. So there are a few, monthly, quarterly, yearly checklists. There are lots of different things that kind of have to happen. One thing, and that you just reminded me of, home office deduction, completely spaced on it when I was creating this. That I need to go add on to that. But these are all different checklists that you can sit there and you can use if you would like them. You can come get my business card, and I can send them to you guys so you guys have those as well. So yeah.
Okay. Is that it?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. He's going to stay after to answer any specific QuickBooks questions if you have any. He's a QuickBooks Pro advisor and be glad to help you with anything specific today. We got the room for a little bit, so if you want that advice personally, you can talk with him. Melissa, do you have any announcements going forward?
Yeah, so we have our business luncheon next week on Wednesday with the higher education of ours going to be there talking some good stuff on higher education. We have our Wine and Arts Fest coming up April 30th. We are looking for volunteers, so if you want to donate your time, please contact us. We'll let you know, or we'll get you filled in on that. And I think that's about what we have going on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm curious, you're paying yourself, you tax yourself on your business?
No.
Okay, sorry. Repeat that question.
Yourself from your business?